Thank you so much for having me. So today I'll talk a little bit about how to think about acquisition across web and app, and then how you can actually take users from your mobile web to your app and why it's important. And I'll give you some examples of people who did it well and how this can actually work even if you don't have a web business, how you can actually expand the web presence and take advantage of it to actually increase your app presence. Okay, so let's get started. Obviously, most of you have apps, so you know that apps are a critical part of the mobile ecosystem. But I have some stats for you here, just in case for those of you who are wondering, should I build a website? Is the app enough? Mobile app users spend 20 times more than mobile web visitors. They convert 3 times better, and they drive more than half of the mobile e-commerce ecosystem transactions. The other thing that's really interesting is that acquiring app users, as most of you know, is really, really expensive. And I had an app before Branch. So to just give you a little bit about the story of Branch, we actually started by building an app ourselves. We worked on it for about 1.5 years. It was a photo book printing app called Kindred. And we went through a lot of the things that we heard about in the first presentation, and we tried a lot of those things, going on Hacker News and Reddit and all these places, improving our SEO. And it used to be actually cheaper than to buy. This was 5-6 years ago, actually. It was a lot cheaper to buy app installs. It's become a lot more expensive, with averages now between $4 and $10. And to actually get a user that converts, it can cost up to $100 on a tablet and about $60 on a phone. So why is taking users from web to app important? I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of background on all the different ways you can acquire users and how it can make more sense for you to actually acquire users on the web and then take them to the app instead of just acquire them to the app directly. So if you think about, today's world and how fragmented the mobile ecosystem is, it's actually gotten pretty hard as a brand, especially if you start being a larger brand, to interact with your users everywhere they are. They exist and they want to interact with your brand in social. They want to interact with your brand in apps, on mobile devices, on desktops. To really follow a user across all the places that they engage, you need to build apps and presences in this really fragmented ecosystem. And that's what we call the cross-platform ecosystem. So when you think about how you can actually acquire users in this ecosystem, I try to break it down in 3 areas. One is ads to the app, and we've talked a lot about this. We heard about some of that in the previous presentation. You can do in-app mobile ads, but you can also do app install ads on places like Facebook, Snapchat, and tons of networks that are there. And then you have ads to a website, right? So when you think about apps to the website, they become a lot cheaper. So you can do display, social, search ads that can work really well, especially if you have an app that focuses on a problem that people search for online. And then you can do things like affiliate marketing, influence marketing, video ads, and those are a lot easier to do when you take someone to the website instead of the app directly. And then you obviously have hybrid ads that can take people to the app or the website, depending whether they have the website or not. So you can do retargeting, chatbots, audio podcasts, and things like that. Acquiring users. So if you think about acquiring users and the prices of these, it actually is a lot cheaper to acquire users on the mobile web than it is in the app. Because you can do things like user content marketing to drive SEO and referral traffic, you can have highly targeted users from AdWords, and you can do a lot cheaper targeted acquisition because you have a lot more information about the users, so you can get a lot more targeted in the type of users you target if you actually are doing this on the web versus the app. So if you think about the organic taxes, and when it comes to search, which I think is one of the best ways you can actually acquire users, organic search on the web has high volume and very high intent. And if we compare that to SEO, it has a lot of lower volume. And it's actually, and as Olga mentioned, it's harder to do, and it's mostly branded. There's different research studies on this, but between 80 and 90% of the searches that happen in an app store actually include an app's name. And that's very different than the searches that happen on the web. Moreover, if you actually have users and you engage them across different platforms, so if you engage them on a website, get them to kind of start understanding your brand and then take them into the app, the data actually shows that they tend to spend more. So users that have engaged with your brand more and in different platforms, they tend to spend more than twice the users that would only be app only and only engage in one place. So what if you could acquire users on the web and then easily convert them into the app? Well, that's kind of the suggestion that we have. So get people on the web through a lot of the paid or organic channels that we talked about before, and then actually use banners and interstitials to turn them into app users at the exact right time. So not right at the beginning. You can't be too pushy. Think about it as dating. The first date, you don't try to close the deal. You do it a little bit later. And yeah, so hello web banners. This is one of the things that we've done, and it's one of the best products that Branch has, and something that we used ourselves when we had the app. And the idea is that web banners can actually help you take someone who is somewhat engaged on a website and then take them into the app, where you can create this like intimate connection with the user, right? It's when someone has your app on the website, it's almost like you're going steady, you're dating, and they're a lot more likely to come back. And that's why the numbers I showed at the beginning are as high as they are. So the other really interesting thing, if you look at numbers, and this is a study that we did, is that smart banners actually perform better than acquiring a user in the app or email. So we looked at click-to-purchase rates by acquisition channel, and we compared, because Branch is a linking platform, we have links in pretty much all channels. So we looked at ads and compared with email and smart banners and referrals. And obviously referrals have the highest intent, so they do the best, but smart banners from a brand's website actually do second best. And it's they perform much better than taking people into the app from ads or email. The other thing that was very interesting is we actually did a performance analysis about people who just used our banners and don't customize it and just have like one banner that looks the same everywhere. And then compare that with people that actually target specific users and show them very different banners depending on their journey, who they are, where they come from, what they're interested in. And we saw something really interesting. We saw that the people who use the personalized banners actually get twice the amount of view to install rates than people who don't personalize those banners. And you can see here, I have an example of Rent the Runway, who, when you come from Google or search, they show you a very small banner. But if you come from an email or you've just went on a specific product on their website, they show you a much bigger banner because they figure out that you're interested. So you're more likely to actually click. So they take more. They take more of the actual space of the website to try to convert you. I guess this takes me to Branch and who we are. So we are really are a cross-platform solution. So we help with links that take people from web to app, but also from all other channels, email, etc. And we actually track and give you an understanding of who a user is across web and app. We have something called a persona graph that helps track a user across their web and app, so you can actually look at a more cohesive view of how someone came to your app and actually started to use your product. We do linking attribution, and we have this thing called persona graph that I talked about earlier. So let's look at some examples of people who driving mobile ads from Journey. So this is a European company, e-commerce company called Ppop that we did a webinar on, and these are some of their examples. So in the early days, they used to have just a button that said, get the app, and they didn't have really great results. And then they changed that into things that were a lot more persistent. So they added a button on top that actually said view an app, and deep linked someone into the specific product that they were seeing on the website if they actually went and downloaded the app. And then they also showed, if you start scrolling, they showed this little red button that actually showed, open an app as well. When they did this, they actually saw amazing results. They saw improved active conversion across all channels, so the ability to track a user journey across web and app. They really increased their conversion from Android, and they actually got a 26% increase in monthly installs just by changing from that one button on their website to adding the banners, which I think are pretty great results for not that much work. Some other examples of how you can target users and the type of banners you can do is you can show banners that look incredibly different depending on who the user is. So you could target high traffic users on your website. You can target high frequency users, so someone who comes up over and over again, and you could even say, on their 9th visit, I want to show this really large banner. You can show a big banner after an event completion. So if they've signed up or sign up for your newsletter or something that shows a lot of interest, you can show something completely different to a new user. This is an example of what Ppop did. And then you can also show very different things to logged in users versus not logged in users. And you can even pass the login through the link. So if they're logged in on the website, you can get them to get the app, and then when they open the app, you can automatically log them in as well, which can be a really awesome user experience, so they don't have to log in every time in every browser or in every app. This is an example of how one of our banners and one of these banners can work with Rent the Runway. So Rent the Runway shows a lot of banners around the addresses. And if you are to click on one of these banners, it actually would take you to the app page, and then as soon as you install, you take it to the address. One thing to say here that I think is really important, and you've seen over and over again, I was talking to the CMO of Mercari yesterday about this specifically. We see that people have this tendency of actually saying, oh, I'm getting someone to the app, I need to take them into the onboarding. And that's not the right thing to do. If someone's coming from an ad or a social or something where they've actually experienced some of the content in your app, do not take them to onboarding. Take them to the thing they were looking for, give them that experience, and then show them the onboarding later. We've seen over and over again with apps that tested this, that when actually they took the user to the onboarding experience first, and they didn't take them to the piece of news or dress or whatever they were looking for, they saw a huge drop-off. Even though sometimes they would say, oh, I'm going to onboard them, and then I'll remember the dress and take them to that later, which is possible to do with our service. But doing that, it's usually not the right way to go. And it's much better to actually take them to the thing they were looking for and then start the onboarding later on. These are also some examples of how you can customize an A/B test. We've seen companies that do 100 different versions of their banners and A/B test them all the time to see what actually improves conversions and on what pages. So this is something that I highly recommend doing. And I think some of that, like view to install, change between people who customize and people who don't is because the people who customize do a lot of A/B testing. So they have a much higher likelihood of actually getting and doubling their conversions when they show the right type of A/B test. And then lastly, the other thing that people ask about is, can you do this? Can you take people from desktop to app? Yes, of course you can. It's obviously harder because you can just link them to open the app. But one of the things that you can do is actually have this thing called Text Me the App. And this is an example of Yelp doing it. So you can text yourself the restaurant, and they have an interesting screen that actually allows you to put in your phone number, and then it takes you a link to the app that actually would take you to the same restaurant. So in this example, I texting this to one of my friends, and if you click on that, it actually would take you, and you download the app, it would actually take you to the restaurant that you texted yourself. This is used obviously a little bit less, but when we actually looked at all the different links that are creating with Branch, these are the links that have the highest click to install conversion of the links, because they have the highest intent. People text themselves apps, and it's a really great way to just get some additional app users from your desktop website. And that was it. I hope you guys found this interesting, and I'll stay around for a little bit. If there are any questions, I'll just answer them in the chat. So thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mada. There are a lot of questions, so I thought maybe we would answer a couple of them right now.
Sounds great.
Okay, great. So Mark is asking, the subscription for my app is about $4 a month. If the cost to get a user 100, so how can it be profitable? How can he optimize his campaign?
I mean, that's the average. Obviously, there's not like that's just the average use. I pulled that from a research study. You can optimize and get a lower cost per user, but I will say it's very hard. When we had our own app, I was buying installs. I think it cost me about $2 per install, and our conversion to paid was about 10%. So it cost me, I think, between $20 and $30 for a paying user, which was obviously a lot lower than 100. But our margins for the photo books were $1, so we would have to sell 30 photo books, which is why at the end of the day, for us, it didn't make sense when we ended up like shutting down the business. I think doing things like buying users on the web, doing some of the things that Olga talked about in the earlier presentation, thinking of more either cheaper ways that you can acquire users or more organic ways, I think make a lot of sense. We do this thing called the Mobile Growth Handbook every year, and we talk a lot about virality and how you can get organic users. And I do think content marketing is something that I wish I had done more for the app. We do it very well at Branch, and we get a ton of users through that. So I think this idea of writing blog posts, writing really interesting content about your game or your app, and then showing banners on those blog posts on that content that says get the app, or having buttons that take you to the app, is a much better way and can do a lot better than actually just buying installs. I think buying app installs is probably the last thing you should do, and only if you have a lot of money and if you've kind of gone through every other organic or web channel and there's nothing left, and now you need something new, which is paid installs. But I wouldn't do that very often if possible, especially not at the beginning.
Okay, we have also like a lot of questions in the chat about case studies, so if you can share later after your session.
Yeah, definitely, I can sell it. If you go to branch.io, you can see like a ton of case studies. We have, I think, like 100. But I can share a few more just on Web2App specifically.
Okay, also Rohit is asking, how effective are social media apps like Instagram, Twitter for paid app users acquisition and engagement compared to other channels?
I actually think they can be a lot more engaging. I mean, when I was doing ads, I think I tried at the time, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram weren't around, but Facebook did really well. I think when we look at all the different channels right now, in order is like Facebook, Google, Apple search ads, and then Twitter and Instagram are under that in terms of the ability to, like, how well they're doing. And Snapchat, I think, is coming pretty close. I think the networks that are the most effective, in my opinion, are the ones where you have the best targeting. And obviously, Facebook has limited their targeting, but it's still pretty amazing. So if you know who your user is, and if you A/B test, when I was doing the app, I had 100 different campaigns, and I was A/B testing. I was putting $15 in every campaign every day, and I was testing, people between 24 and 26, 26 and 28, mothers with like their first children, 2 children, 3 children, and like, I actually found that teenagers in long-distance relationships and moms with their first child between 0 and 3 were like my best targets, and they performed so much better than anything else. And the problem with things like Twitter is not quite there yet. It has targeting, but it's not as good. But I do think in general, these do much better than other ad networks. So I highly recommend trying them out.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing so many great insights.
Also, if you guys, one more thing, if you guys are starting out and want to try Branch Out, we're actually free. Everything at Branch is free under 10,000 MAUs. So that's it. Thank you.